Is life worth living without Thanksgiving? In Oregon, violators of rules against large gatherings could face jail time, where they will be gathered in large groups in jails with other violators.
For the last 8 months, I have been asking Oregonians to follow the letter and the spirit of the law, and we have not chosen to engage law enforcement. At this point in time, unfortunately, we have no other option.
No other options. In other states, leaders vow fines and also jail time, while some just freak out.
First of all, let's try not to be obnoxious and offensive in your tone. If by the state's numbers you hit 3%, the schools close. What are you talking about? You're now going to override. We did it already. That's the law. An orange zone and a red zone. Follow the facts.
I'm still confused.
Well, then you're confused.
I'm confused, and
then I'll tell you what, Jimmy.
Parents are still confused as well. The schools
No,
in
they're
New
not
York City
confused.
tomorrow.
You're confused.
No, I think
Read
parents
the
are
law.
very confused as well.
Read the law.
He needs that large Q-tip to clear out his ears. I wonder if his brother still has it. Meanwhile, photos emerged of Gavin Newsom partying up as he lectures you on shutting down. This as the PA governor orders you to wear a mask at home, which is fine with me. I've been doing that for years. But this is getting gross. Seriously, we're adults who already work together to save the most vulnerable lives. I mean, you flattened the curve, not the politicians. You saved the lives, not the media. You pulled it off, not them. So it's hard to be lectured by bozos who did nothing. And it's hard to sit by while rules are enforced differently for other people. It's always the righteous who break their own laws, flying off to Maui or faking quarantine. And then they wag their fingers at you, who are the heroes. Then they excuse the mob, who don't just violate social distancing, but also your personal space. Your event is a super spreader. Theirs, of course, is heroism. So it's jail time if you visit Granny, but a woman who spits in a cop's face, she's out in a few hours. In a pandemic, how's that not assault with a deadly weapon? Well, when the media shapes the story, cops are evil, so spit away. So the public should be pissed off. We know it's fun being a tyrant, but we know what to do. We don't want our relatives to die, so don't insult us by saying we don't care. Your threats make us seethe. So my advice for Thanksgiving for all of you is, why not make some signs and call it a protest? Tell everyone you're speaking truth to Turkey. Just wear a mask and keep your distance, and do it for Granny and not for the governors. All right, Kennedy, you are the libertarian in this company. This is an interesting challenge because this is really about what America is. It's about freedom and risk. Give me liberty or give me death. We can have both.
Yes, and the idea that you have to sacrifice freedom for security, that has been shown to be a false paradigm. But, you know, you said just make some signs and call it a protest. All you have to do for the busybodies outside your kitchen with binoculars is just hold up some Biden-Harris paraphernalia and say, no, we're celebrating.
Yes.
We're celebrating the victory. That's all. And they'll be like, okay, no, that's fine. The virus knows. The virus is political. It knows not to attack people who are standing shoulder to shoulder, celebrating, rather, this great victory. But we do have to be very mindful of our own actions. That doesn't mean, and I sincerely thought that once Election Day came and went, that would be the end of the virus fuss budgetry. But it has only begun, and that's because people who are in power, who have a dim view of other human beings, now want to control them more than ever, especially with the vaccine on the horizon, because they know with the vaccine there is hope, and that means that the doors will once be open for businesses, churches, and schools, so they have to do whatever they can to concentrate power, and those could have long-term bad effects.
What if anybody will look at a surge in cases 2 weeks after the Biden celebrations? I doubt anybody's going to do that. So, Dana, they also said, experts are saying, no singing, no loud music, and no alcohol. What's left for you?
Oh, well, I can't sing at all. The alcohol thing, we're going to have a fight about that. I do, but I was thinking, it's not like for me, if the issue is, you know, speaking loudly or singing, like I laugh loud. And I enjoy a good laugh. That's one of the great things about Thanksgiving. So I do think that for some of these people who are in government or in public, they're in people who are in power. Okay, so let's take Governor Cuomo or somebody like Kate Brown out in Oregon. Like, I don't have her responsibility. Like, I can only take care of myself and my family and do the right thing for me, and that's it. You know, we have a public health department for a reason. Like, they go around and they give the restaurants a grade, and we need that.
Yeah.
Right. And I also do have some empathy for these doctors and nurses who, you see them on the news, they're exhausted, they're tired, and some of these hospitals can't handle the load. So I understand what they're trying to do, but when it comes to somebody like Mayor de Blasio and the schools, he had this arbitrary number. 3% positive cases means we shut down the schools again. But it doesn't take into account any other things that we've learned. There's not been these big spreads from schools to teachers, teachers to students. So what he's done is he's failing the students because he can't come to an agreement with the adults. And I think that we will pay a big price. When we will, like, the children who are missing out on a year of school or more, they're going to pay a big price. I just want to mention one other thing about that. A friend of mine has a colleague. She and her husband both work. They have a 7-year-old son who is ADHD. He has not been able to go to the in-person school. He cannot learn online. He's basically missed an entire year of school. He has forgotten how to read. That should be unacceptable to all of us.
Yeah. That's another casualty, Jesse. We hear about drug overdoses, suicides, depression. This delayed education is going to hurt people in lower income and other brackets. The wealthy are going to be able to get through this. Just hire a private tutor.
I'm going to have to bribe my children into college somehow, some way. Hopefully I can afford it under the Biden economy. I mean, there's nothing in the Constitution that says I can't invite Uncle Jimmy over for dessert.
Yeah.
If Aunt Sue wants to break out into song, I'm supposed to tell her that's against the law? Or I can't scream when the Lions don't cover on Thanksgiving? I can't have a drink? It's crazy. But I want to talk about this mask worshiping. I wear a mask in Manhattan, but if I don't wash my hands or social distance, then the mask is useless. Where all these little hot spots are popping up, whether it's California, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois, all of those states have had mask mandates for months. They're run by Democrats. It's not the silver bullet. They just had an outbreak at the Mayo Clinic. They had an outbreak at the World Health Organization. These aren't Trump-friendly territories. The royal family's getting sick. Professional athletes have caught COVID. Democrat politicians have caught it. There's only so much you can do against the virus. The virus will always win. So anytime someone catches COVID in this country, it's not one politician's fault. It's not Donald Trump's fault. You have to lower the mortality as best you can, and you have to wait for a vaccine, and at the same time, you have to stay clean. But to have these ridiculous regulations around Thanksgiving, when the politicians enacting them aren't following them themselves, it's kind of like having a fat trainer. Why am I taking your advice if you're not taking your own advice?
He might be big-boned.
Big bone, hefty.
Yes, he's a hefty trainer.
Hefty
That's
trainer.
true. Don't fat shame the trainers.
Sorry, Greg. I
All right, Juan,
apologize.
last word to you.
Well, I understand that people don't like to have the government telling them what to do.
Here, here.
Right? No one likes that, right? Libertarian over here. But on the other hand, I think that there comes a point where individual actions impact the safety of us all. And, you know, and the easiest example would be speeding. Obviously, you can't drive your car as fast as you might want to because that impacts other people. You could crash into other people, hurt yourself, kill people, and the like. These days, you're not allowed to smoke indoors. You know, certainly can't smoke on an airplane. That's, again, because of us Americans as a family looking out for each other. And I think in this way, we have to start to think more openly about why these regulations are in place. It's not about Democrats. Today, we had, I think it's 3 or 4, maybe more, Republican governors say, I'm now going to impose some limits, whether it's masks or other limits in terms of gatherings. So you're seeing now, I think, a little bit moving away from the Trump steel hand, oh, no, we're not having a lockdown. Now I think you see Republican governors saying, listen, the reason we're doing this is not just by fiat, but because we have such a tremendous increase in the rate of infection. We have such a high level of people hospitalized, and our hospitals are reaching capacity in terms of dealing with this. And it's a lagging indicator, but we see an increase in deaths.
But not
That's a public health crisis for America, not Republican, not Democrat, but for us all.
Right now, I think in hospital capacity, is nowhere near that. I think the last numbers I checked with Wisconsin was the worst, had 10% with COVID patients, which is still bad.